Shalom, 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 Yasha Allah. This your boy, Brother Shamwa Allah, back at you with another quick edifying video. Today's lesson is going to be called Everyone Against His Brother. Everyone against his brother. All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Halal, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son's name, who you ignorantly call Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi. All right, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rawchaa Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, who have ruled well to the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days, and has pushed this gospel and this truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom. Another mighty shalom to all you Akim out there laboring on the highways and on the hedges and on the unicorn, which is this internet, pushing this 100% doctrine, this 100% truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom to you all as well. All right. Like I said, today's lesson is going to be called and everyone against his brother. All right. And I came across this article. And what's crazy is the article was up and then they took it down. So I had to kind of search for it again. This is from This Is Money. It says, ominous civil war warning as experts predict California could split. Okay. It says, California could secede from the U.S., sparking a second civil war within the next 10 years, a political expert has revealed. Says Professor Benjamin Cohen from the University of California, Santa Barbara, warned that the possibility of political polarization reaching a violent breaking point throughout the U.S. was substantially greater than zero. It says in one scenario, the political economist and author predicted California would declare its independence from the U.S. in 2035 amid growing friction of the federal government, prompting the next president to take drastic action. It says in a fictitious news bulletin about his hypothetical scenario, Cohen wrote, President threatened a military takeover of state government in Sacramento, backed by National Guard troops from nearby red states. Armed conflict looks increasingly possible. It says, although states seceding may seem like an impossible probability to many, Cohen explained that there is a growing movement in so-called dream states to rally behind the cause some feel they belong to rather than remain part of the greater U.S. family. The expert said identity can be a very powerful motivator. That's why I worry about the risk of civil war. When it comes to something as strong as sense of community, identity, rationalism falls by the wayside. A recent YouGov poll found that Cohen's fears are shared by many Babylonians, it says, or Egyptians, right? It says, with 40% believing that it's somewhat very likely the U.S. will have another civil war within 10 years. The same percentage believe that war would be fought between the Democrats and the Republicans, not between individual states. In a university release, Cohen said, it is difficult for me to imagine how things would divide up if there were a civil war, but the probability of such a war is substantially greater than zero. It says he added that the possibility of states deciding to secede from the U.S. was an unprecedented phenomenon, underappreciated phenomenon. It says, seceding from the U.S. essentially means a state or group of states will be deciding to leave the country to form an independent nation. This would mean they reject the authority of the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, and federal government, setting up new government and handling things like taxes, defense, and trade on their own. The threat of a civil war emerges because the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled that it is illegal for states to secede without the consent of all the other states in the Union. It says, just like in Cohen's nightmare scenario, the federal government would likely declare the action illegal and take measures to stop it. However, studies continue to find that more and more Americans believe the government is reaching a critical breaking point and may even stop functioning as a democracy within a decade. It says the June 30 YouGov poll of 1,111 adult U.S. citizens revealed 31% think America will become a fascist dictatorship by 2035. Another 20% think the U.S. will be communist by then. Cohen added, it seems to me we cannot ignore the risk of the current fissures, fragmentation, the breakdown of a sense of community. It says, despite predicting that California as a whole would be the first state to break away from the U.S., the specialists in international political economy said that dissatisfied Americans desire to redraw the geographic borders of the U.S. to better fit their political ideologies. For example, while New York City has heavily leaned Democratic for years, the rest of New York State has typically favored Republicans. In Cohen's new book, Dream States, a lurking nightmare for the world order, a professor warns of an impending breakdown in society that could literally split states in half. He said, we tend to simplify geography by looking exclusively at the existing lines on a map that separate one sovereign state from another. It says in California, the battle has seemingly already begun with riots in Los Angeles over the federal government's mass deportation of illegal immigrants. President Trump warned that California Governor Gavin Newsom's actions during the crisis in Los Angeles was taking the country closer to a civil war. It says, when asked if his administration would arrest Newsom, Trump said, I would do it. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows it. The president added, I don't want a civil war. Civil war would happen if you left it to people like him. All right. So that was the article. All right, let's kind of get into it. Let's get into this is 2 Ezra chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy that I will put in thy mouth, saith Yahawah Bahasham Shai. And prophecy is to speak before it happens. Okay? We understand that civil war will be happening upon this place, Babylon. All right? It says, and cause them to be written in a paper, for they are faithful and true. All right? Let's see. Verse 3, it says, fear not the imagination against thee, let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith Yahawah Bahasham Shai, will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction, for wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Okay, let's jump down. Verse 14, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and for their destruction draweth nigh. One people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Okay, so the Lord is sending this, upon the earth. Okay, let's go to let's go here. All right, and we understand, this place is greatly divided. All right, but the prophecies, show us, all right, that civil war is looming again. Okay, let's get this real quick. Let's go to Mark. Let's go to the book of Mark 3 and verse number 24. It says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand, right? And you see, it's greatly divided, to the fact that they're talking about, states splitting from the U.S., man. Okay, this place is greatly divided. All right, it says, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. All right. And it says, if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. Okay. And we see the end of Esau's, rulership. Okay. Of their world order. All right. It's coming to an end. All right. And this place is greatly divided. Right. And we see that ultimately the scriptures say, that you're going to have, Esau against himself. Okay. Which is going to bring on that third woe. All right, because you have, Gog of Magog, all right, Russia coming up against him, right? Against who? Against his fellow brother, all right? The Egyptians or Babylon, all right? And this, but even then, you're going to have division, as you see, even with the House of Representatives, the Republicans and the Democrats and all that. You have a great division, a great divide going on just amongst the people, all right, in Babylon, okay, and ultimately it's going to lead to this fall or its destruction, all right, because if a kingdom divided against itself, it says that kingdom cannot stand, okay, so we understand that this is what's going on, all right. We also understand that all this is the workings of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, all right. Daniel 2, verse number 21. It says, he changeth the times and seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. Okay, so the Lord is the one who maneuvers all. All right, we go to Daniel 4. Right, Daniel 4 and verse number 17. Let's see. It says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High, right, Yahawah, ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set it up over it the basis of men. Okay, and for so long, this world, this society has been ruled by the basis of men. All right, Esau, Edom. All right, starting from the top banking families on down. All right, and they are greatly divided. Right, and with this division, right, the kingdom cannot stand. Okay, let's go to the book of Isaiah. Right, chapter 19 and verse number 2. Right. Let's see. Yeah, let's just jump to the point, right? Isaiah chapter 19 and verse number 2, it says, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother. and every one against his neighbor, and city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Okay. It says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. All right. Talking about civil war. All right. They're fighting up against each other. Okay. So it says, I will set up the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they will fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Okay. You have states, right? They even talked about how in New York, right? You have New York City, which is a liberal, and then you have pretty much the rest of New York, which is, on the Republican side, right? So you have that division, even within the city. You can go to your city and you'll see, you'll have the people, you walk down the street, you'll see the little flags. Some people will have the Nero flags and the whole nine. Okay. All right. So this place is greatly divided. It says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to the wizards, right? Because this place uses sorcery, all right, and it's keeping the nations and the people drunk with the wine, all right. It says, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawah, Bahasham of hosts. Okay, so ultimately we understand that civil war is brewing, and it's on the horizon. All right, and it's been prophesied. Okay, so with that, like I said, I would give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad. A mighty shalom to the 144,000 men. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who have ruled well to the spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days. Another mighty shalom to the rest of the elect out there. Stay diligent, stay focused, keep praying for one another. Continue to keep this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and the stability as the stability of your times. All right. Put your trust and your faith in Yahawashi, right? Let him be the strong tower, all right, of your defense in these days, as these days continue to get eviler and eviler, okay, and as these prophecies continue to unfold, all right. And with that, we say a ball, and shalom.